What's up, everyone? Aaron Nagler here for PackersNews.com, live on Facebook late in the day on Thursday. Not much going on there at 1265 Lombardi, at least not outwardly or reportage-wise. All quiet on the Midwest front. But thought I'd jump on because I told you guys I would. See what's on your mind, see if there are ideas, subjects, questions percolating within the Packers community that maybe you want to talk about, see what's up. Tammy, hello, thanks for joining us. Lies, Corey, how are you? Robert, thanks for joining us. Alex, what's up? And like I said, not a ton going on today. Obviously, most of the major hires have been done. The Packers have done a good job of shoring up the major positions they needed to hire. Still one or two hires left to make on the coaching staff, most likely, but for the most part, now attention will turn to the All-Star games and the path to the Combine and free agency and the draft. Eric says dilly dilly. Terrence, what's up? There will be some kind of breaking news now that you've gone live. Julie, I 1000% expect it. That's kind of why I did. I was sick of waiting. Why can't the Packers play in London? Terrence, it's a really good question. I guess that is the one bit of news, is the Packers are not on the slate for the London games in 2018. I know there had been a lot of speculation about the Packers possibly playing the Rams in London, but Mark Murphy had indicated a few months ago that he all but ruled it out. In a question at Packers.com, his monthly Murphy Takes 5, he had said that, it was highly unlikely that they would be. I think Mike Spofford, who writes for the team website, he pointed out something very smart, and I think this is probably going to be the case. Signs sure would point to them playing in London next year against the Chargers, simply because the Chargers will still be in their soccer stadium, which holds, I think, 33,000 people. It's super small, by far and away the smallest venue that any NFL team is playing in right now. So the Packers are slated to play the Chargers away in 2019. So what better place to play them than in London? And the Chargers are actually going to London this year, so it would be 2 years in a row for the Chargers. But that move would make a ton of sense because the Packers, as everyone has said throughout the day on Twitter, and I've just been having this back and forth with a few people this afternoon, the Packers would never, and I mean never, and I'm talking never, I'm saying never say never, except for this instant, you say never, because they would never give up a home game to go play in London. That would never happen. Mark Murphy has said they will never give up a home game, and if Mark Murphy were fired and there was somebody else in there, they would never give up a home game because it would be professional suicide. The Packers obviously are so intertwined with the community. I don't need to tell you guys, there is zero chance they would ever give up a home game to go play across the pond. Now, they will eventually play in London. That will happen, but it will be an away game. And obviously most teams are loath to give up a home game against the Packers because you guys travel so well. You fill up their stadiums, you fill up their coffers. But the Chargers game in 2019 makes the most sense because of their stadium predicament. Do you think Jimmy Graham would be a good fit for the offense, or blocking not good enough? I think Jimmy Graham is slowly becoming the new Raji of these Facebook Lives because he is asked about in every single one of them. And I get it. He's a talent. He's an exciting guy. I think he's one of the softest players in the NFL. You do mention his lack of blocking, but heck, Jared Cook was a pretty poor blocker, and he completely changed the offense. I think they would absolutely explore that possibility if he actually reaches free agency. I can't imagine Seattle allowing him to do so, but we'll have to wait and see. Again, as I've said a couple times since Brian Gutekunst became the general manager, it's impossible to know how aggressive he'll truly be. I know they've paid it a lot of lip service, but until we have some kind of track record and we see how he operates, I guess all options are on the table. So your guess is as good as mine in that regard. Will Ty move back to receiver? Brenton, I don't think so. I think they'll keep him at running back, even though they have found a kind of a bunch of talent there with the rookies playing as well as they did this year. But he'll still most likely be listed as a running back. Now, what he plays, I don't really think it matters what you call him. I think they'll use him both in the backfield and in the slot and on the perimeter as a wide receiver. He'll play everything. He'll be an offensive weapon more than anything else. Edge guy like Ansah, Dexter, I'd be shocked if Ziggy Ansah actually makes it to free agency. What about Bridgewater as backup quarterback? That's a question I've gotten a lot of too. I'd be all for it. I don't know how they view him. Bridgewater was my favorite quarterback in that draft class, and I think obviously the injury robbed him of a lot of time here. And I know a lot of people were down on him because of his performance prior to injury, but I would only point out the offensive line he was working behind, which was absolutely atrocious. I still think he's a very talented guy. It remains to be seen what kind of quarterback he could be post-injury, because we haven't seen him take a single snap. But it's something that I would explore and see if the price is right and bring him in to compete with Brett Hundley. Absolutely. Aldon Smith on a prove-it deal. Levi, I would do that. I like where your head's at. I would be very surprised if Mark Murphy invited that off-field history into the franchise. And don't get me wrong. I know that's Gutekunst's call to make, supposedly. But somebody like that, and it's kind of the same thing with Scott McLuhan. I've got a lot of questions about if Gutekunst would bring in McLuhan to be on staff. Things like that, when a guy, whether a player or front office guy, has a very public history of off-field issues, those are going to be run by Mark Murphy. There's zero doubt in my mind. And I have a real hard time imagining Murphy's going to sign off on them. Unless, maybe Gutekunst absolutely goes to bat for someone and pounds the table for him. But even then, I have a hard time imagining it. Are there any guys that you think are primed for trades? You mean on the Packers? No, but I can't rule it out because, like I just said, Gutekunst, we don't have a history of how he wants to operate. I imagine if he's anything like, say, a John Schneider, then, yeah, you would think he'd be open to trading anybody outside of Aaron Rodgers. But, the problem is finding a guy who teams will find attractive as far as both their play on the field and the contract. Those are precious few on the Packers' end of things. Kyle Fuller may be worth a shot at cornerback, due for a healthy season. I like Fuller a lot. He's obviously had his ups and downs down there in Chicago. Again, that's a guy I'll be surprised if he actually reaches free agency. Call New Orleans and see if Ingram is available. I don't think they need a running back. If they do, they'll maybe look to the draft, but I'd be surprised if they swung a trade for a running back. I mean, between Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones, they've got what they need back there. And then you throw in Ty Montgomery, and that position is I'm not going to say set because you're never really set, but I would be surprised if they went that route, but I wouldn't do it. Let's see. I would like to see the Packers with a super fast receiver to take off the top of the defense. I agree, and I think their hope was that Trevor Davis was going to be that guy, but he's shown precious little from scrimmage to show that he can handle that. Because doesn't do you any good if a guy can run past your corners if he can't catch the ball or even make an adjustment when the ball is in the air to go try and catch it. So he's got the speed, but he doesn't seem to be that type of player. Not a true, legitimate deep threat, which continues to elude them. And I absolutely think they need to find one. Matthews to the middle. Rick, I think that makes a lot of sense in Pettine's defense. We'll see. We probably won't. It's possible we get these guys in maybe some kind of press conference setting in the next week or so. I tend to doubt it. I think the Packers will probably wait until the combine, where we would get to talk to both Gutekunst and McCarthy. But I would think it makes a world of sense as far as Pettine's defense, especially if he goes with that 4-3 under front that he liked to do in Buffalo. Now, we've been talking about this for a long time when it comes to Matthews, and McCarthy has always given it lip service as far as moving him around, and they do move him around a little bit. But I would tend to think his best bet for an elongated career would be to move to the middle. But we'll see. Hi from Alabama, Gulf Coast. What's up, Doug? How are you? Kurt says, Trevor Davis seems to lack effort. Yeah, I mean, he had a couple of bad looks down the stretch this year. I think he tries hard. I just think he's, I don't know, something off there. I'd like to see Let's see. Daniel seemed excited about the defensive coordinator hire via Twitter. Any other player reactions? I haven't seen too many, but I know Daniels obviously likes what he sees there. He likes the history. Pettin's been involved with a lot of really good defenses over the years. Now, some of that was Rex Ryan, some of that was the talent on hand, but there's no denying that Pettin's been involved at a very high level defensively. Move Raji to corner. Larry Fitz, Dustin, they don't need Larry Fitzgerald. They got Jordy Nelson. You know, and I know Nelson looked old and slow down the stretch there, but you give him Rodgers and he'll be just fine. What is the timeline for restructuring or cutting guys like Clay and or Jordy? Free agency is usually your kind of, you know, the deadline / marking point. I would be very surprised if anything happened before, you know, the week before free agency and or leading up to it, maybe even a day or two before. As Andrew Brandt, former Packers executive, is fond of saying, deadlines spur action. And right now there are no deadlines, not for a long time. So we'll see. What's up from South Dakota? Larry, how are you? Nelson to be a decoy this year. Corey, I don't know about a decoy. I think he'll still be a valuable part of the offense. I still think he'll produce if Aaron Rodgers is healthy and playing quarterback, which one would assume he will be. I know like I said, I know Nelson did not look good down the stretch this year, but you give him Rodgers for a full offseason, then into the season, I think you'll be surprised at the production Rodgers gets out of him. When new compensatory picks get handed out, we'll get word of those usually kind of at the start of the combine, which this year I believe is the very last week of February, February like 28th, and March 1st, 2nd, 3rd is the combine. So late February is when we'll probably find that out. Saints or the Vikings? Man, give me the Saints. And I know people will say that the Vikings are playing at home, they have the best defense, etc., etc. The Saints have learned a lot since they lost up there early in the year. Their offense is really dynamic, and I think a lot of people are sleeping on the Saints' defense. I think it'll be and then you throw in how, the Vikings looked beatable there those last 2 weeks of the season, and now they've had a week off. So if the Saints can kind of jump out to an early lead, I like their chances. Now it's going to be tough. That dome will be no joke. It'll be loud as hell, but it's not like the Saints aren't experienced in playing in a loud dome. I think it'll be a great game. I think it'll be close, but give me the Saints. What do you expect the tight end position to look like next year? Different. Right now, I mean, you got Lance Kendricks and not much else, provided they let Richard Rodgers hit free agency, etc. I think it's got to be revamped in a big way. I think they've got to look at free agency because I don't think there's any way you can come back with Kendricks as your number one. And I don't think you can draft a guy to be your number one tight end just because the position is so hard in general in the NFL, but especially in McCarthy's offense. They do so much. They're asked to wear so many different hats. I just can't imagine that they would go draft only to kind of restock that position. Do the Falcons take advantage of a great possibility here? You mean in Philadelphia? Yeah, I think they do. It sucks that Carson Wentz got hurt. Sucks for the city of Philadelphia, but yeah, I think the Falcons, especially on defense, I think they're playing. It's funny. Everyone, you think of the Falcons, you think of their offense, you think of Julio Jones, Matt Ryan, the two-headed running back, etc. But their defense, I mean, they looked absolutely legit out there playing on the road on a crap surface against a high-flying offense that had laid waste to much of the NFL throughout the season. They absolutely shut them down. Coupled with the way they were playing down the stretch, yeah, I like Atlanta on the road there. When will the official schedule be out for 2018? Usually, it's like the week before the draft. So I would think, around sometime in April, whenever the draft is this year. I can't remember off the top of my head. Should someone with 63 career INTs be in the Hall of Fame regardless of what legal trouble? Oh, is that a question about Darren Sharper? Yeah, Darren Sharper would be, if we completely ignored the off-field stuff, the fact that he's in prison and every horrendous, heinous thing he did in his life, and just talked about on the field, I still think he's in the Hall of Very Good. I wouldn't put him in the Hall of Fame. He was opportunistic, obviously. He came up with a lot of big plays, especially for the Saints in their Super Bowl year. but the guy never met a tackle he didn't want to turn down. And as far as a man coverage safety, he was beat a whole lot in his career. He did a really good job of being Johnny on the spot and in the right place at the right time. Obviously learned the game, knew kind of how to read route combinations and studied quarterbacks, and did a great job in that regard. But to me, I wouldn't put him in. I mean, you've got a logjam of safeties as it is. You're going to put him in over who? You know, Dawkins, Butler? No chance. Darren Sharper is a Hall of Famer. Patrick, I completely disagree. Travis Kelce to the Packers. Brenton, let's see if he hits the market. It's possible, I suppose. Why doesn't Amon Green get a Hall of Fame consideration? He was dominant for 3 or 4 year period. Well, you know, again, I think he was very good, and obviously he's the Packers' all-time leading rusher. But again, the fumbles, the kind of short span of his production, I would have trouble seeing him in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. All right, guys, take 1 or 2 more here. UK Packer fan, what's up, Jason? How do you feel about the Packers possibly coming to London in the future? I started the video by saying I think 2019 bodes very well. Mike Spofford, on the team's website, pointed out rather astutely, I thought, they're set to play the Chargers in 2019. The Chargers will still be in their 30,000-seat soccer stadium at that point. So it would make a lot of sense to play that game in London. So, you know, keep the faith. I think you're close. You're very close. Yet Terrell Davis gets in. Yeah, Ryan, I mean, that's partly because of the fact that he's in media and he works that. And obviously, he was on a Super Bowl winning squad. 2 of them. You know, it helps. Is Joe Philbin going to call plays? No, Tyler, he won't. Unless McCarthy shocks us all. I mean, it's always possible he could change his mind, but he did say after the Tom Clements experiment that he would never give up play calling again. So we'll see. Maybe he does change his mind, and maybe he gives it over to Philbin, but as of right now, no, the thinking is McCarthy will continue to call plays. All right, everyone. I'm sorry if I didn't get your question. They do fly by very fast, but I can't believe the interest here, even on a slow news day. Thanks so much for checking it out. Make sure you're checking PackersNews.com for all the latest. We'll have everything up for you, whether it's old news, new news, going into the draft season. We'll have tons of content up for you, so make sure you're checking it out each and every day. Thanks a lot, everyone. Have a good night.